What's up, guys? You know what night it is. It is Thursday night. Cards and, let's see what I got tonight. Cake on the front, baklava on the back. It's kind of like the mullet of desserts right there. Whole pile of baklava, extra honey, couple slices of cake. And today was going to be a lifting day, but I just didn't feel like it. So did some cardio. Anyway, this is going to be an amazing live stream because I'm joined by Matt Powers of Power Sports Memorabilia. He has been a memorabilia business owner and expert for, I think, the last, 2008, 13 years. Plus, he's very involved in sports cards. He has a great YouTube station. We'll get him to share that in a second. But very insightful dude, very mature perspective on the hobby. And we're going to be touching on not only memorabilia versus cards and how we can learn from the memorabilia market to enhance our experience in the hobby, but also on the news with PSA, because they obviously suspended service, and we'll get what Matt's take on that's going to open up to for other grading companies as well as for collectors and investors, and then overall just his strategy, and we'll go from there. But guys, thanks so much for joining. Welcome back. Now let's get to work. Had to do my catchphrase. Let's bring him on right here. Yo, Matt, what's up, man?
Brad, what's up, man? Thanks for having me on, man.
It's a pleasure. You know, it's funny because when I first saw your video, I think it's the one where you were having a message to collectors and investors. I think it's about a week ago, something like that. I looked and I was like, this guy looks like a slightly older version of me, but with a lot more muscle. So I was like, I'm feeling almost threatened that the role of being the token masculine rugged guy on YouTube is now being it's now in jeopardy now that I see this guy. But I saw your video and you have a lot of great insight plus a great background. So let's just dive in with who you are and what your background is in sports overall.
Well, I think I need to change my business name to the Strong Memorabilia now or something like that. I mean, I guarantee you I can probably snatch and clean and jerk more than anybody on YouTube as far as memorabilia wise. So if you don't follow weightlifting, I can definitely probably do that.
You know what's funny is I saw that on your website that you're a power lifter and you had your snatch and power clean? What's it? I don't do CrossFit.
Snatch and clean and jerk.
Okay. I mean, snatch and jerk, they're like pretty dirty names right there. So I'm like, are we talking about powerlifting? What are we talking about? But I've just put on like a couple pounds of muscle because the gyms have finally opened. So I'm feeling really good just being able to get back and move my body again because it's been such a long time. But obviously you come from an athletic background. So who were you growing up and how'd you get into this whole world?
Yeah, so I played baseball in college, and then I had an internship with the Oakland A's, and that was finished up there. I had to look for a new job, and a buddy I played high school baseball with worked at a sports memorabilia company in California, and he was looking for some part-time help, and I just happened to reach out to him and got hired there. And at that particular time, they had 2 stores, and then they expanded out to 4 stores. I ended up running one of their stores, and then my wife and I ended up moving out here to Missouri about 13 years ago. And so at that particular time, it was kind of decide what I wanted to do. And that's when I started my own deal.
Okay. So look, we'll get into cards later, but memorabilia is very fascinating because it's not a normal business. It's not a normal hobby. And I feel like memorabilia is one of those industries that it's like if you make a Venn diagram, you'd have sports cards on one side, you would have memorabilia on the other, and it would be this giant overlap in the middle. So real quick, just from like a memorabilia ownership standpoint, what's going on that side, knowing that the sports card market is exploding? Are prices going up? Are there new products being talked about? Like, because a lot of times with the cards, scarcity is the most important part, where if you have autographs, you can get a lot of them, but are there certain items that are getting autographed in small doses, or like, certain prints or something like that?
Yeah, so the memorabilia side, we do limited edition stuff, but it's really not all that pertinent. And the reason being is, unless an athlete has an exclusive deal with a company, say for example Michael Jordan, right? He's had an exclusive with Upper Deck since the beginning of time, right? Limited edition pieces that Upper Deck creates are actual true limited edition pieces. But if a guy signs with Fanatics for 2 or 3 years, and then he can go and sign with Steiner Sports when they were around for 2 or 3 years, they can create their own limited edition pieces, right? So it's not really all that popular in the memorabilia world. What's been really popular since, you know, the whole COVID thing started, and of course that's when the kind of the sports cards craze started, was we couldn't do signings anymore, right? The in-person signings were not taking off anymore because people could not go to these events. They weren't happening. And so the private signings, meaning like, hey, when an athlete comes into your place of business or to a hotel room where you actually lay out all the items and have stuff signed, that's the memorabilia business in the last year or so. And that's what's really taken off, is the paid private signings.
How does that work? Because I go to your website and it looks like you have these private signings coming up, but not knowing anything about how it works, talking to athletes or their managers or whatever, like what's the process? Because it sounds kind of like a dream come true to get athletes to sign autographs on items that you can display for yourself and then you could sell for others. Just like being full-time in sports cards is like a dream job. So like, what's the back end of memorabilia?
So signings are tricky, and I'll kind of lay it out for you this way: is getting the athlete to do a signing can be challenging at times, depending on who the athlete is. Typically, if it's a current player, you're going to most likely work with their agent. You know, if it's a guy that's notable and worthy of doing an autograph signing, you're going to probably have to work through their agent. Retired players, most of the time, they don't have agents anymore, so you can usually typically work directly with them. But how it works is you'll agree to, hey, listen, you'll get a minimum price of, let's say, $10,000, whatever, and we'll pay you $50 an autograph or whatever it is. So you'll be signing 200 pieces of that particular price. And, you know, you'll do the signing. It'll be either be a public signing or it'll be a private signing. Public meaning that's where the public can actually attend. They can bring their own items and they can get stuff signed. But since, you know, last year we haven't had too many of those, so it's all been private signings, meaning if you want to get your own item signed, you have to send it into a company like myself who's doing a signing with that athlete, or partnering up with somebody like Fanatics, who represents, you know, a bunch of different guys. I work with Fanatics all the time. So what they do is they say, hey, Matt, listen, you know, we're having Peyton Manning in again here in July. Would you like some pieces? Would you like to offer it out to your customers? And so that's what I do, is I say, hey, listen, Peyton Manning's doing a signing with Fanatics. If you guys want to send in your own stuff, here's the pricing. And then they send the stuff into me. I get the stuff to Fanatics. It's all labeled. It's, you know, that's the key with getting stuff signed, is you got to label your stuff correctly, because these signings get hectic. If Peyton Manning's signing 1,000 pieces in a 2-hour window, like it goes fast, you know? So you don't have time to sit around, oh, he wanted blue. Well, let's double check the paperwork. Like, there's no time for that. Right. So that's really the key. And where I come in is having a system in place to make sure that those customer stuff gets done, because the customer's not going to be there to tell Peyton Manning, hey, sign that in blue. Right.
So, okay. Like, this is all pretty new, because I thought maybe the athlete would go to your storefront or there'd be a place like that. But it's really just an athlete in a given area where a number of memorabilia dealers would be kind of like brokering it. Something like that?
Typically, you'll go to where the athlete is. You want to make it as easy as possible on the athlete. So take, for example, Shaq, right? Shaq will do signings in Florida. He will do signings in Atlanta, mainly because he, you know, lives in there, and then he also works, of course, in Atlanta. So typically what you'll do if you're going to be doing a private signing is you will book a conference room or whatnot. You'll tell the athlete, hey, listen, this is when we'll be doing the signing. It'll be from 10 to 2 at this particular time, at this particular date. And the athlete will come in there and they'll sign all the pieces, and then the athlete will go. When you do a public signing, yes, typically they'll come in to do an autograph show, kind of like the Dallas card show that you see down there in Texas. Mm-hmm. The athlete will come in and they'll sign stuff. Or if you're doing a public autograph signing at someone's store, then yes, the athlete will come in there. They'll sign autographs for an hour for the public, and then maybe for an hour for you in the back room. That's typically how it works. But again, those haven't really been happening just because of, you know, everything that's been going on the last year or so.
Sure. Okay. Now, I imagine with a lot more people working at home, the whole man cave background, like wanting to have a really cool place to work from, is becoming more and more of, I guess, a priority. And some of you guys there in the comment section, you've seen my video from a couple of weeks ago when I went to the card show. And of all the cards I saw, the one item that I ended up buying was actually this Shaquille O'Neal gigantic rookie card that was blown up, and then he signed. And Matt, you were telling me about this signature right here, and just how, I guess, unique it is based on different athletes and how they sign different things depending on their environment or like the circumstance. So tell us a bit about this autograph right here and what you saw. Let's try and get that glare off.
Yeah. So an athlete, most athletes will have what you call a full signature, and then they'll have a short signature. And Nobody wants the short signature. They hate that one. They want the full signature from the athlete. And that's typically what you get at a paid signing. And that's what you're seeing right there. That's Shaq's full signature. His short signature is basically that last loop, get rid of that, and that bottom loop underneath the H, get rid of that. So then that's his short, non-paid autograph signing. I guess something that you could get like at Staples Center, or if you saw him out in person or whatnot, that would be the signature that he would get. But one you're holding there is his paid private signing signature.
Okay, yeah, and I also wanted to point out that it's PSA. I don't know what DNA means, if that's just like their authenticated label of memorabilia, but it's PSA certified, and that also got me thinking as to the brand and the reputation of PSA in cards, because it's like, now that I remember that PSA does memorabilia as well, it's kind of hard to even think of PSA diminishing in reputation because they're so widespread overall. But in terms of certifications, how does that work? Are there ones that are better than the others? Are there any that are not trustworthy?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, so what's your piece right there? Depending on when it was signed, you can actually, if you look on the back of it, you'll see that the PSA DNA cert. Now, which a PSA DNA is, of course, part of Collector's Universe. That's just the memorabilia side of them. So if you flip it over to the back, you should see the PSA.
Well, there is a number. There is a number here.
So there should be a card that comes with it. Sometimes people lose that card. It happens all the time. But if you type that number into PSA's website, it'll tell you whether or not that was a witness autograph. So the three main authentication companies that you have are PSA DNA, which of course is part of PSA. Then you have Beckett Authentication Services, which is part of Beckett. And then you have James Spence Authentication, which is known as JSA. JSA was actually started by Jimmy Spence, who used to work at PSA. So that's kind of like the whole family tree there of the three. All three of those companies witness signing. So when I do like a private signing or any signing with an athlete, you can call up JSA and say, listen, I'm going to be in this particular area at this particular time. Do you have a rep in the area that can come witness the signing? And so then they'll have a rep come out, and they'll each of those three companies has a witness certificate of authenticity because they also authenticate autographs, meaning autographs that were not signed in front of a representative of their company. So that particular item, if you wanted to take it out of the frame, you could send it off to JSA and get JSA's opinion on it, and they'll issue a certificate of authenticity that based off of that. But what you really want is you want the witness authentication for all three of those companies. That means a representative from there was present for the signing. They witnessed the item being signed. That's what most collectors want. Of course, on top of that, you've got Upper Deck Authentication, who is, of course, obviously, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, those kind of guys. And then you got Fanatics. They do all their own authentication. So when Fanatics does a signing with, let's say, Luka Doncic, right, they authenticate all their own signings. So they put all their own holograms on everything. If they're doing a signing with a Major League Baseball player, the unique thing about that is Major League Baseball has their own authentication program, which maybe you've seen that on their game use stuff. So if there's a game use, something that happens big in baseball, say a player has a big strikeout or something like that, and that they want to sell that ball, they will then authenticate that. They will put the MLB hologram directly on that ball at the actual game, like literally right when the event happens. Because they have authenticators at all the Major League Baseball stadiums for that stuff.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about that is I have a couple John Lynch autographs from the Super Bowl experience back in the early 2000s, and they actually put on the PSA hologram, something like that, right on the helmet on the 8x10. But I want to transition into a bit of where memorabilia compares to cards, because I feel like there's just so many similarities to it, and it's a natural parlay from, if I'm into sports cards, I might as well start looking at memorabilia. If I'm into memorabilia, I might as well look at sports cards, because some of the most valuable sports cards are actually little pieces of memorabilia. They're the game used jerseys, they're the autographs. So where do you see, what's your stance on sports cards as it pertains to comparing it to memorabilia? Like, is there one that you think is like just a better investment, a better upside? What are the trade-offs?
So I tell people when it comes to memorabilia, as far as the autograph stuff, that make it as personable as possible. I mean by that is like you can customize everything as far as getting special inscriptions that have athletes write on there for you. So if you wanted something to write to Brad or something like that, or a 3-time World Series champion and stuff like that. But as far as like an investment side, the cards are, just way up here compared to memorabilia. And the reason being is rarity, right? There are no pop reports in the autograph industry, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have no idea how many helmets Patrick Mahomes has signed. We know how many PSA 10 rookie cards he has that have been graded by PSA and Beckett, or BGS 9.5s by Beckett. So that is unknown in the autograph industry. And also you have serial number cards too, which of course drive up the price. And of course, now the only difference and caveat would be if we talk about Patrick Mahomes is athletes change their autographs as their years go along. So Patrick Mahomes' rookie year autograph is his very nice. You can see the big P in the M, and it's actually kind of a full signature. Now he's just got a P in the loop-de-loop, and it's kind of a really kind of crappy signature. So people hate his signature now. But the rookie autograph signature of his is big bucks among collectors. They can instantly spot that one, and that's the autograph item that they want.
All right, so that begs the question, why aren't there serial numbered helmets? Why aren't there serial numbered items that can have that same effect as cards? Because when I think of it, I'm like, from a display point of view, I'd much rather have a nice helmet to look at than digging up a small card. Because even though the card's great, it's still very small in size. But if I want to have something, if I want to have a man cave, I'd love to have a Patrick Mahomes rookie helmet that is limited to 99. Aren't there things like that that could happen or in the works? Like, it just sounds like with Top Shot of the NBA, where you have limited moments, you have packs with cards being where it's at, and knowing that scarcity is so important. Why can't you have something like that in the memorabilia world?
So they do stuff like that. Let's take the Patrick Mahomes example, right? If you wanted to do a limited edition helmet with the Super Bowl MVP inscription on there, okay, that's what he would write out, right? So Super Bowl LV or LIV MVP, for example, right? The problem that you run into that, right, is you don't want a limited number of those to sell, right? That's the main inscription for that athlete. So if you limit the helmet to 99, for example, you are cornering yourself. Yes, those are going to be a certain value to those, but that's an inscription that collectors are going to want to get constantly. Now, yes, it could drive the price up, but there's only a certain price that people are going to pay for a Patrick Mahomes helmet. And also, too, you got to think about if Patrick Mahomes has an exclusive with a guy down in Texas right now. If he leaves there and goes to Fanatics, say, for example, I know Fanatics would probably love to have Patrick Mahomes underneath their wing. Fanatics is going to want to do that, right? And Fanatics, they don't care that this guy did a limited edition of 99. It doesn't matter to them. Fanatics, it's their guy now. So they're going to do the same thing again. So there's really no corner to the market right now. Now, Panini obviously makes Luka Doncic's rookie cards. Everybody knows that. So there's nobody that's going to come down the road and say, oh, we're going to go ahead and remake Panini's rookie cards or our own version in 10 years, right? It's just not going to happen. Card collectors aren't going to want that because they know that's not a true rookie card. It was not made by Panini. It was not made during that year. That's what people want. But if you come down, like, for example, like the throwback cards that they do, like in the Prism ones that are coming out, the 2012 throwback ones, those are cool. Like if you get a Damian Lillard one, but that's not his 2012 Prism, right? The values are way different.
Okay. I don't know if you answered this because I was like trying to figure it out, but so you would have all the autographs, but can't there be like certain helmets that are limited to 99? And it's like, all right, you're going to sign 1,000 things, but only 10 of these specific helmets, 10 of these things, just the same way you have a limited amount of autographed rookie cards of Luka Doncic or someone else. Like, from the supply side, because you want all the autographs, but you just know that there could be a premium for this helmet or for this, just like there's a premium for a game worn jersey, just because you know that that's very limited as well.
Yeah, and they do limited edition pieces. Like take, for example, when the Chiefs won the Super Bowl and Fanatics brought in all these Chiefs guys to sign the blue teal Super Bowl helmet. So it's a different style helmet than the Chiefs, where the Chiefs obviously wear a red helmet, but they have these Super Bowl teal helmets that were specially made that anybody can pretty much buy. But Fanatics had a limited edition of 45, I think they made, or 50 or whatever it was, where they had all these particular athletes on this particular helmet. So they do that a lot of times. But as far as a particular athlete doing a Mike Trout autographed baseball with a limited edition number, it doesn't really make much sense because they only do it that way with there's like special inscriptions on there. And so, for example, if you wrote 2012 AL ROI for Rookie of the Year, right? But there's no, it's an inscription that people are constantly wanting to get. So you don't want to corner yourself saying, well, we did 400 pieces of this. We want to continue to sell this down the road, because that's the big money maker for Trout and all these guys, is to get inscriptions on his items.
Okay. All right. Good to know. Because I love just hearing about memorabilia overall, because I'd love to learn more about it myself. But moving on to cards, because I know you've been back into cards for over a year now, but you've also been dabbling in it for a while, just heavy into it since February. Is that correct? Last February?
Yeah, last February is where I kind of got back into cards, mainly because of Zion. Zion was my guy. So Zion, obviously the biggest, guy to be drafted since probably LeBron. And, so I, along with everybody else, I saw these margins that people were getting for these cards. I would see a PSA 10 for Zion sell for $1,000. And then you see the raw card sell for, or ungraded, for $250. And you're like, well, crap, I can do this. Like, all I got to do is buy this card and then set it up to PSA and I get a 10, how hard could it be? Right. And so that money was what really initially brought me into it. And I was like, wow, this could be a great way to diversify the business, but also to learn about something new, but mainly to offer a whole different product. And mainly cards is kind of somewhat, my business now is mainly cards, but also the autograph signings is probably about 50-50 now.
Wow. Okay. And obviously there's going to be a lot of lessons you've learned since February, but with your background in memorabilia, is there like a lesson that's very surprising coming from being so versed in the memorabilia space, that's like just so wildly different that you're like, how in the world is this the case when all this, this wouldn't make sense at all in my world?
Easy answer for you. Anybody can undercut anybody's pricing in cards. When you are doing signings with athletes, the athlete's getting paid, right? So the cost of goods of that item is pretty much the same for everybody. But if you've got take for example, the Zion, right? Let's say you pulled that out of a blaster and you're $20 into that card. You get it graded at PSA for $10 back in the day, right? You're into that card for $30. You can undercut anybody on the market. With like Patrick Mahomes, the guy gets paid hundreds of dollars for an autograph. Like there's nobody's going to be able to undercut. Their pricing is going to be very, very similar. You may be able to undercut someone by a couple bucks, but not from $1,000 to, I'm just going to sell my PSA 10 for $300 and get rid of it. Like it's just not happening in the memorabilia world.
See, that's where I get to think, man, I'd love to open a pack of cards and get a redemption for a big autographed helmet or like a game-worn jersey. Why can't the redemptions from Panini start incorporating other things versus just cards? Like, I think that'd be cool if it was like Super Bowl tickets or other things, the same way that NFTs are starting to talk about, well, if you get a pack of NBA Top Shot, well, maybe you get, what if you get LeBron James to sing you happy birthday and you can keep that for the rest of your life? Like, how cool would that be? So I just feel like there's a disconnect between cards and memorabilia when it should be a lot closer, because a lot of people that love cards love the same connection that they feel with memorabilia, right? So going back to what you said though on undercutting, I think that'd be so cool if we can get, I don't know, just ways to get the memorabilia very cheap. But from your video on Prism 2021 basketball, you did a great analysis of, is it worth buying the box? And without going into everything, what were some of your biggest takeaways from that $2,000 price point of latest Prism?
It doesn't matter if it's $2,000 or $1,000. You're not getting your money back out of it. It's just the numbers just don't work. And I always tell my listeners and followers and everybody like that, I personally like a targeted approach. Meaning, if you believe that LaMelo Ball is your guy, just go after the LaMelo Ball cards. You're going to have to wait a couple weeks to wait for the price to come down, but go after the specific players that you want to have in your collection. Why waste all this money opening up a hobby box when you're going to get 142 players or 442 cards that you hate, and you're going to get 2 cards that you like? Like, why would you want to do that? Like, you're just wasting your money. You're wasting your time. You're adding stress into your life. I don't want to do that. I just like that targeted approach of going after specific players.
So what is targeted for you though, besides specific players? Is it older product? Is it, because like for me, one of the biggest learning lessons was I'm not even going to touch new product. I'm not going to touch anything even from this year, because I know that there's too much dust that needs to settle. And the dust is product being released, product at PSA and other grading services, product that is yet to be uploaded to CompC and StarStock and other platforms that I use. I don't know what the supply is. And I know that the demand is usually higher because it's new. And then I need to wait for all of that to settle. So I'm to the point where I'm very hesitant to buy anything current year because I want all the numbers to be a bit more visible than what they currently are. But what's your idea of a strategic approach versus just a player that you like?
You've got to pick your spots. And I same thing. I always tell people, and this is just my own thing, and you guys do what you want, but buying the superstars, you can almost never go wrong. Now, I don't buy anything. I'm like you. I don't buy any of the new product. I buy all the older stuff. And the reason being is I like it better, but also it's way cheaper now. Like people sometimes just don't know what they have. Like a nice looking Kobe card, a nice looking Jordan card. You can still find those for under $5. I mean, as crazy as it sounds, there are still good deals out there to have for good superstars. Now, yes, these aren't going to be your $1,000 cards, but that's not really what every card has to be, right? Every card doesn't have to sell for $1,000. So you can find $50 cards, $100 cards, and find something that's in your budget and have some fun with it, you know, getting some ungraded cards or even graded ones. I mean, you can still find, I was buying PSA 10s, Tom Brady's about 6 months ago for $35, some for $22. Like just, you have to think differently like other people. You have to think, okay, who are the best quarterbacks in the country? Okay, these guys. What is out there right now? And you look, oh my gosh, there's PSA 10s for $25. Yeah, these aren't rookie cards, but somebody's gonna want these at $50, you would think, right?
Yeah, you know what's funny about you mentioning that is, especially getting into this hobby a year ago and having the same mentality as I did when I was 12 years old, which was a $20 card is a lot of money, right? When I'm 12 years old, a $20 card was like the top of my budget, and a $100 card was like a Michael Jordan rookie card when I was 12. So that was like way out of it. And now $500 card, $1,000 cards, $2,000 cards are just being talked about like nothing. And I'm buying those now, but I'm also thinking to myself, that's rent. That's a month's worth of groceries. That's a lot of money in this thing that we're all attaching value to just because we've all agreed to it and it's cool and all that. But the second that it's not cool, or the second that people want something else more, it can go right back down to $50 or $80 or whatever else. And so I love looking at the downside, and not like in a pessimistic way, but more of like an objective. Okay, this card could go up for X, X number of reasons right here, but this card can also go down as well. And I saw someone in here in the comment section talk about Deshaun Watson. And Deshaun Watson was the perfect example of, he was on top of everything. The hype train was so high, he's going to get traded. He's a top quarterback. And overnight, that card and all of his cards went from incredible highs. I mean, if you look at the charts, it's like twice the price of what it was when it peaked in August, when the whole market was high, all the way down to prices that were lower than, I mean, like pretty much as low as May of last year before any of this really took off. And I go, no one, people were looking at the upside only, but not the downside. And obviously that's a very unique situation. And usually in the off season, the upside's a lot higher than the downside, than, like a Jason Pierre-Paul freak injury or something like that. But a $1,400 card can go down to $700 in a matter of days. And is that part of your thought process or not? And for me, it is. And I know for yourself, it is. So I know you have a very grounded and methodical approach. So what are some of the fundamentals that you like instilling? Or I know you have a couple kids as well. If they wanted to get into sports cards, if they were of age and they wanted to get in, what would be some of the principles you would pass on to them?
First off is no debt, and not going into debt to buy this stuff. Okay. These are little pictures of men on cardboard. I mean, let's keep it real, right? That's what they are. So I know a lot of people in this hobby are hurting out there. I've seen, you talk about that message video that I put out there. You should read the comments through there. People saying they're $30,000 in debt and they've got $50,000 in cards. Like, what do I do? Like, well, pay it off, man. You don't be a dummy, right? Like, yes, your stuff may go up in value, but imagine the stress that's going to leave your life. So I always tell my people, listen, follow a budget. Okay. Have a budget that works for you, not for everybody else, right? If it's $100 a month, spend $100 a month. Don't stress about it. have fun with it, but also follow a plan that works for you. The plan being, hey, listen, I really like Patrick Mahomes. Don't go buy Deshaun Watson just because somebody else says to go buy Deshaun Watson. Use your head, think about it. And it's like, okay, if this thing goes down in half in value, am I still going to want this card? Am I still going to enjoy it? And you have to think about these things, especially when you're buying current players, because anything can happen. I mean, you saw it with guys get arrested, they get traded, stuff like that happens. They say something stupid. They don't play well. Like all these things, especially in the NFL where it's just a, cut me now league, right? Anybody can come in and replace you.
Yeah. And I mean, like, it's crazy because I like buying off season because I know that I'm limiting my downside. I know that you're more than likely not going to break your leg walking to the grocery store, right? More than likely, if you're going to get injured, it's going to be during the season. If you're going to underperform, it has to be during the season. It's not going to be anything off season. And also, I realize that, there's a lot of human behavior that just gets exemplified in the hobby where it's like, the NBA playoffs are coming near and then all the prices are going up. And my thought process is like, wait, you guys are only thinking about that now because I feel like there's always just a 1 month to 2 month time frame where people get in. And, the closer you are to the cliff, the more than likely you are to go over from time to time. And so that's where I'm thinking about next NFL season now, just because of where the prices are. Of not everyone, but a lot of guys. But then also, the NFL draft's coming up. So I was buying a couple months ago in preparation of what I could anticipate happening for the draft and things like that. Besides the guys, besides the budget, is there anything that specifically you're targeting, whether it's specific cards, specific grading companies? And we'll talk about Psa Suspension because I know you have a video coming out on that. But anything else that you really find valuable to be one step ahead?
I really think you have to look at things a little bit differently as far as the other grading card companies. I know we're going to talk about PSA and all that kind of stuff, but PSA is the king of everything right now, but it's not going to be like that forever, right? There are so many other grading card companies that are out there, and you can't sell something and you can't have anything in your collection if it's sitting at a grading card company. So there are other companies out there, SGC, CSG, and I know I personally love HGA. I love what those guys are doing. You just can't get in with them. But you have to look at things differently. So I'll give you a quick example. Right, we were watching a movie, some giant movie with my kids over the weekend, right? And the giant goes and meets with the queen. And as soon as they go and meet with the queen, I'm like, I wonder if there are Queen Elizabeth cards out there. And sure enough, I jumped on eBay and there were Queen Elizabeth cards from 1997 made by Press Pass. And like they are just beat to shreds, the ones that I've gotten. There's, I think, one I can get graded. But that's the kind of stuff that you got to be thinking about. Like you got to always be thinking about the hobby, and not in a money kind of materialistic ways, but just kind of in a fun, like, I wonder if there are cards that are like that. And sure enough, there were.
There's so much satisfaction in getting ahead on a card and then seeing others get in on it after you. And it's not the money, it's the satisfaction of, I thought about this, I pieced it together, and it actually worked out. And COMC, I don't know if you're familiar with that platform, but to me, it's been amazing for just finding such random cards. And there's one card that is starting to get a little bit of clout now, which is the 92-93 Upper Deck Fanimation. And it looks like a Saturday morning cartoon, and they have Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, and a couple others. I think a couple different sports as well. It's not the best looking card. It's not like Marvel's where it looks legit. It just looks like a Saturday morning cartoon with Michael Jordan as an athlete. And I was like, you know what? I might as well just get some because they were $1 at the time. And now they're $15-$20. Nothing too high, but you just go to yourself like, yeah, that was pretty cool that I saw this and it was validated by someone else. So, yeah, I'm in the same boat with you right there.
Well, two things you said right there. Number one, you saw a card that you believed in, right? And you looked at it and you said, you know what? I think somebody else might like this. And the second thing you love the process. I'm not a huge Gary Vee fan. I mean, I like Gary Vee, but like sometimes it's a little too much for me. But he talks about the process. If you love the process, you can do anything in life. anything, right? And that's what I love about the memorabilia stuff and the cards. I love the process of like, I wonder if that guy would sell. Let me get that, put it together. Oh my gosh. Like David Goggins was selling autographed books. And I put together a huge David Goggins piece, you know, it says stay hard on it, you know, and I framed it up with the book and the autograph and all that kind of stuff. I was like, you know what, man, that's a cool piece. Somebody's going to want to have that in their man cave.
Yeah. David Goggins, if you guys don't know, I've heard him on numerous interviews. That guy is a beast. Like you talk about, I don't know how to sum it up. Just like that is one tough dude. But I think one thing I realized about sports cards specifically is that when I get a card, I'm always antsy because I want to just move it because the enjoyment comes from the hunt. And it's just like what they say with girls or what, you know, dating, that the chase is better than the catch. And I think that's the way it is for me, is that the game of doing research, finding something and seeing if my theory is right or not, that's the reward. Having the card means that I can't do that anymore because it's capital that I have that I want to move so that I could do that process over and over again.
There's no shame in money being your motivator, right? Like there's nothing wrong with that. But you know, I collect on the side and then I do I sell stuff as well. So, but I enjoy the process on both ends, right? I enjoy like take for example, I had a Deion Sanders 2015 Prism, a red Prism. And it was a sharp card because he was wearing the Falcons uniform in there. And it was card number 20, what was his jersey number 24 in there. And I was like, I don't even care what this card cost. It was like $80. I think PSA 10. I want it. I put it in there and I loved just like got it. And I was like, this is so amazing to have. And it was an $80 card, right? Like who cares about an $80 card, right? But then I go and I buy something else. I buy it for $10 and I sell it for $100. And I'm like, wow, I get the same exact feeling, right?
Yeah. It's funny because the cards I'm buying for myself now are so low cost because I'm looking at $1 card. Like there's an Anthony Bourdain, Allen and Ginter, his rookie card, right? Nice. And I bought it for like $1 or $2. But I was such a big Anthony Bourdain, no reservations fan that when I look at it, it hits home. So now for me, the only cards that I want at this stage are ones that hit home emotionally, which are like a certain Kobe card or Tom Brady in a Bucks jersey. It doesn't have to be super rare. It doesn't have to be a gold prism or anything, but just Tom Brady in a Bucks uniform hits home because, you know, it relives the whole Super Bowl of last year and even going through COVID and relying on the news of Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski coming to the Bucks, lifting my spirits early on during quarantine, all that kind of stuff. But I think that's part of the realization is that there are $1 cards and $2 cards that mean more to me than $500 and $1,000 and $2,000. So I'd much rather sell those to people that value those so much higher. So I could buy the stuff that makes me happy, but also I can sustain this long term because, you know, I think one thing that you'd want to get across with your YouTube station and myself as well is I want people to enjoy this hobby for a while, right? I don't want people to be like, hey, that was a great 3-month experiment and then I lost everything and now I'm sour and I'm out, because that doesn't help anyone. I want people to be like, I found my joy in just going through dollar bins and finding these little cards that reminded me of my childhood, or I just love the fact that I'm now talking to my old best friend way more than we have in years, whatever it is. But my concern is always that, is this sustainable? And I'm nervous that if people don't understand the difference between gambling and investing and just what they really want from the hobby, then it's going to be like a flash in the pan for them.
Yeah, there's no shame in collecting cheap cards. I love them. I'm with you. I love them. I get stressed if I buy a big card and then I see one listed for half the price a week later. And I'm like, dude, what? Come on, bro. Like, pick me up here, I mean, what did I miss on this one? I think it opens me up to things that I don't want to experience doing the higher end cards. It's just, I don't have the blood for it. I'm very conservative in most everything in my life, right? I like being very slow down. Let's take our time. Let's figure it out. Let's buy more life insurance. Like that's the way I do it, right? And that's just me, and that's okay. But that's why I like the cheaper cards. Number one, because my cost is lower, but two, I can make a ton of mistakes and it doesn't kill me.
Yeah. And I learned pretty much my process was start with the low end stuff, spend dozens, if not hundreds of hours on that. And I made a lot of mistakes. And that's why I won't touch new product, because on CompC, that's the platform I still use a lot. I will have this false sense of what supply is, because I'll look at 2020 Mosaic. This was what I was looking, or 2020 Mosaic or 2019. 2020 Mosaic last April, May, thinking that this is what the supply is, not understanding that one person is about to ship in 50 of this rookie card. And then I'm buying it at $8 a piece, thinking these are the lowest ones. It can't go down. And then 50 more get uploaded for $3.50. And just that feeling of like, damn, I didn't see that coming. Like, damn, my strategy is off. It's just like a feeling of losing, which kind of sucks. But that's also why I won't touch the new stuff until I understand what supply really is. Going back to the grading companies, though, and so I want to hear what your take is on the PSA suspension, and because it sounds like you're pretty optimistic about the other companies out there. Is there one that you think of that is going to really step up during this time, or do you think that it doesn't really matter at the end? PSA just has a stranglehold, and the second place, whoever's in second and third, is just too far out of it.
Second place against $1 billion company, it ain't a bad place to be, right? I mean, I'll take that spot right here. Put me there. I mean, I'll open up my own grading card. I'll be second to PSA. That's no problem there. I mean, this is I love that old Snoop Dogg song. Step your game up. This is the time. This is the gold rush right here, man. Like if you're CSG, you got to be licking your chops. Like, dude, PSA, bring me your customers. Like, all CSG has to do is they don't even have to give you cards back right away, right? If they just communicate things to people saying, hey, listen, we're running slow on our turnaround time. Hey, your submission is moving along here. The worst thing people want to hear is nothing's happening. Like they just want to know something. Okay, hey, yep, we're going to get to it next week, or we're going to get to it the following week. That's what's great about HGA. And I know HGA is tough to get into right now. They have a lady, I forget what her name is, but she's the one who answers all the messages on there. And she just did a live on there because they weren't able to get their platform up tonight or whatever. She's answering questions and she's engaging with the people. Like, this is a great opportunity to earn the business of PSA customers. I think people will switch over because we all know what's going to happen with PSA, right? They're going to reopen services. People are going to flood with 1 million cards again, and we're going to be right back to where we started. The only solution to any of this, I believe, is having some AI software where they can grade cards without the human grader, where they can just mass produce these grading things really quickly. That's the only thing that's going to be saving grace for PSA. They can hire as many people as they want, but people are going to still be set. Like, think of all the Prism cards people are going to be holding off until July right now. And then they're going to send 2 million cards to PSA, and then we're going to be right back to where we started.
Okay, so my approach is a bit different. My perspective is a bit different, and here's why. So, for one, in terms of everyone that's holding on to their cards until July, I remember hearing that they're going to tier it out, where it's just like, all right, well, maybe now it's the $150 service for the next couple of weeks, or X amount, and then we're going to go that way. But when PSA has millions of cards in their backlog, I kind of see it as you're kind of making sure that they are still number one, because when you think of all the data points on Card Ladder and Market Mover, when I think of all that, at the end of it, yeah, there's some slabs that look better than others. There's some that are like, I think HGA looks good. Their slabs look good, but they just use so much damn plastic. I feel like I have to recycle 4 pounds of recyclables just to make one HGA slab. I know SGC, their slab's huge, and I like, even everyone has their favorite slab and whatnot. But if there's going to be 5 million cards with the PSA label, that it's very easy to understand the value of that card. The difficulty for me is if I have SGC, and what's the other one, the comic book one, CGS? Uh-oh, did you freeze or did I freeze? Someone froze. Anyway, if you have these different companies and it's not easy to tell what the grade, like what the value is, then can you really move the card? Uh-oh, looks like we lost him. So, and Matthew brings up a point here where it's like, look, I don't see there being a second place, a real second place, because I don't know if anyone is being nearly as aggressive as PSA. Here's the thing. When you think of like that company like Toys R Us or Sears or whatever, where they have just dominated the market for such a long time that, you see the Amazon or the other company being very aggressive and coming up. HGC is the only company I see that is being aggressive and innovative. The others just seem like they're content with just like, all right, we'll take whatever business we can get and we'll be okay. But PSA, I guess we'll get Matt on it back in a second. Yeah. Dude, Dustin, your internet was so contagious, it reached Matt over in Missouri. But the point is that I'm still going to go with PSA. I don't have a good enough reason to send cards or to even entertain the possibility of going with another company, just because PSA is doing the work necessary to not only be number one, but actually like maintain it, because they're expanding like crazy. They're doing everything. They're just not taking anyone's cards hostage. But I think something else worth noting is that, maybe the turnaround time isn't going to be actually slower, because when you think about it, let me see if Matt's back on. If they're not going to accept cards till July and you were going to send in a bulk service and it was going to be roughly a year for it to get back, then maybe by the time you send it in July, if they open it back up, it'll only be a 6 month turnaround time. Let me see. You back? You back with us?
Bro, man, what's going on with Missouri? Yeah, you're cutting our internet out of here.
No, that was actually Dustin, the personal finance dad. He has his Wi-Fi instability, his unstable internet is more contagious than COVID. So it just happens. Yeah.
Let me spray some stuff on my hands here real quick. All right.
But real quick. So basically my thing is,
hey, tell me your theory.
PSA is doing everything it takes to be number one. I feel like they're doing whatever it is. I see SGC and BGS being very content with whatever they have. I don't see any big moves coming from them. The only companies that I feel are innovating is HGC and maybe what's the comic one? CGS?
CSG?
CSG. Okay, that's the one I'm still not familiar with. But they're the only ones that seem like they're being aggressive with it, especially HGC. I keep wanting to say HGA. Yeah, not HGH, HGA.
Dude, why is everything like 3 letters? I don't understand. HGA. I mean, somebody needs to come up with 4 letters for a grading card company.
Just something, or 1, man. Just make it real simple. But anyway, I feel like PSA is looking to enhance their lead. And this is just them saying, look, for us to enhance our lead, we got to double down on this. We have 5 million cards or whatever already with our slab on it. We're not worried about us losing reputation, because there's, no matter what, when you're searching on Card Ladder or Market Movers or eBay sales history or whatever, you're going to be looking at our cards as the reference point. So it's not like Sears or Toys R Us or Blockbuster saying, hey, we're the giants, we're the establishment, we can just relax. They're actually being aggressive. It's like, what if Blockbuster was actually on it about let's go online, and Toys R Us was like, no, let's go online, let's do this to enhance their status as number one. So to me, I'm just not going to go anywhere else. But to be fair, I also have 700 cards at PSA, and I don't plan on grading anymore because it's just it's time consuming, and I love being outside too much.
Okay, so I agree with you. I think PSA is going to be a formidable competitor. They have to be, right? They just got bought for $1 billion. Like, they're not just going to get laid down, right? But from my angle, just to bring a different side here, is my customers are, yes, collectors, obviously, but a lot of my people are just gift givers, right? So they're not really, if it's PSA, CSG, they really don't care as long as it's in a slab and it looks good and it's at the right price point. And I think that's where these other kind of card grading companies come into play, is they can fill that void. And if they can get me cards quickly, I'm going to funnel stuff their way. And if it looks good and if it sells, but time's going to tell. I've got 2 submissions at CSG right now. One I actually sent with KK Sports Cards. They're actually a submission group for them. 10 card minimum on bulk, $8 each, which is incredible pricing. Because PSA is going to be what? $25, $30 a card. I mean, for somebody coming into the hobby, that's a big chunk of change to spend on grading. And if you've got $500 on, I think you're going to spend it on CSG, in my opinion, just because I think you can get way more cards graded and you get a lot more chances of selling cards as opposed to having 4 cards you can get graded at PSA with a small budget.
Okay, so it's $8 a card right now?
Yes.
Okay.
with 60-day turnaround time, which they're already running 3 months behind right now.
Okay, I was going to say at $8, it's such. I mean, $8 is funny because a year ago I think I was submitting and it was $8 a card at PSA, and when you run the math, you're like, well, if it's an 8, it'll break even. If it's a 9, I'll triple my money. If it's a 10, I'll 10x my money. So it was a very easy return. The same way as you'd look at buying boxes, retail boxes or hobby boxes for $200 or like such a small amount when you know that, well, I just need 3 base rookie cards to double my money, and that's going to happen. So the question is, how long until they say, all right, now we're stopping our $8 service. Now we have to up it to 15 or 20. And then SGC, I think you saw, and you posted on your Instagram, SGC tripled their price, right? It was like triple their price on April Fool's Day. And I don't know if they realized it was April Fool's Day because people were like, where's the punchline? Where's the part that at the very end it says April Fools and it wasn't there?
Dude, cost matters, man. I mean, cost matters big time in this industry. I think that's the big message I want to get across is 99% of us are on a strict budget. We only buy so many cards out there, and we've got to get in with the cheapest people just because that's really our only option, right? So, I mean, to comment to this guy, CSU will be up probably, but they're still probably going to be cheaper than most other places. Card grading is going to get more expensive. There's no way around it because all these card grading companies, they see the amount of work that goes into it with hiring, insurance, all this kind of stuff. And they're like, $8. Like we don't make any money at that point. That's why you got to get your cards in right away. Just send them 1,000 cards, 10,000 cards, whatever you can afford, right?
Well, it's kind of like an introductory offer where it's like, hey, if we just get people to start going with us and they start hitting the market, then we've earned that reputation and now we can up it to 10 or 12 or 14. I feel like it's the same thing with a lot of companies that just need people to be lured in and get the momentum going. One concern I had was PSA is expanding so much, but at what point do they start downsizing? Because I'd imagine a lot of the cards they're receiving now are 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s. And there's going to be a point where, okay, you've raised the prices. A lot of that old stuff is already in their system, but now it's just new product, or like the ratio between new product and old product is heavily in the favor of just brand new stuff. So will you need 300 or 400 employees or whatever the amount is in a year's time or 2 years' time when the backlog is actually caught up? What are your thoughts there?
That's good. Well, PSA is up to 750 employees now, and that they've added like 3 to 350 or so since last year at this time. So the key with them though is, people are going to still send them the same amount of cards? Because from here until July, my theory is that they're going to be hiring more graders. So they may be 1,000 employees, let's say, for example. And PSA's big problem, I think, though, is they are based in Southern California, meaning they don't have right now remote places to do grading. So if they get shut down again for whatever reason, okay, or for example, they don't do remote grading right now, where they can't hire as many people. There aren't that many graders in Southern California just living there wanting to go work at PSA. Like, it's not as easy as people think to go out and find graders. Yes, you can train people, but if you've ever hired anybody, training takes forever, and it's so hard and it's expensive. And that's why PSA, I think, is still going to be number one, because they have the resources to be able to do all that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, they have the resources. It looks like they have the goal to do all that and to be number one. It doesn't look like they're content. They don't want to slide down. They're just being very aggressive for someone that's in that first seed. And yeah, to me at this point, just like rookies are new product, it's unproven. Rookies are unproven. The grading companies right now, it's all unproven because everything we're looking at is literally in such a small window of time, right? Like, between now and April 1st, 2020 is a world of difference. And I'm like, well, what are the constants that have been here for the last year? And I'm like, well, PSA, obviously, BGS, which I feel like BGS just doesn't care. I think they're just kind of like, look, we'll do it. We're content with our name being Beckett, and we don't want to expand. We just want to ride this wave and do our thing. And that's cool. That's fine. But I feel like PSA, and then, obviously the players, like the older stars, all that, those are the constants. And then there's just so much unknown. New platforms, new players, all this new product. Hoops Premium, yeah, looks great. Will people care in a year's time? Mosaic, that was great until no one cared anymore, right? You look at the Mosaic prices, it just went off a cliff. So for me, I'm just like, if PSA takes forever, that's fine. If there's 5 million cards there and they trickle it out over the next year and a half, I'm okay with that. And part of me actually thinks that that might actually prolong the excitement of the hobby, knowing that, hey, I can't get out now. I got 200 cards at PSA that I'll be getting back in 6 months or 8 months. If all the cards hit the market today, I think that's when there would be a lot of concern, because now imagine going from X amount of cards in the system to triple that overnight, and then you're trying to sell the card only to realize there's 80 more of that listing on eBay out of nowhere. So I kind of think of it like just, kind of like inflation, right? Trickle out a bit more money, and it's okay in little bursts. But if you just flooded the market with cards or money at the same time, that's when things go haywire.
You've got a finance background, right? So this is what you read a book or two. Yeah. I mean, I've watched a few YouTube videos, I have a few savings accounts and checking accounts, but cool. This is, and I haven't heard many people talk about this. And I feel like every time you say that, somebody's like, oh, we've already talked about that. But this is going to be very interesting what happens with our money supply. And I don't know if you know this, but in the last year, we printed 20% of our money supply.
Yep.
20%. And, my wife doesn't want me hearing all this stuff here, but I am deadly scared for what's going to happen here in the future as far as our economy and stuff like that. So our card market is definitely tied in with the economy. And if our money supply is not worth what it used to be and people aren't working, there goes the hobby, man. So, and that's why I always tell people, listen, take care of all your rent, food, all that essential stuff that you need to live on, and then have fun with the cards, man. But take care of all that essential stuff first.
Yeah. And something else that really puts this hobby into perspective is if you can look back at what the same cards are worth 18 months ago, or even a year ago, a lot of them are worth a fifth or a tenth of the value. And when you just think of that, like, you're like, okay, let me zoom out a bit more and understand that this is a great moment of time, and it's a lot of fun. There's excitement, and the hobby is going to have a new higher floor because there are a lot of internationals. There are people returning, and there are platforms to cater to different types of collectors and investors. But I mean, I look at this and I still go, this is still a piece of cardboard that someone did not value nearly this much a year and a half ago. This $1,000 card was only $100 a year and a half, 2 years ago, and the player was just as good. So, like, I think just always having that in the back of your mind keeps you a bit more realistic versus idealistic.
Yeah, some Instagram page, I forget, one of the big guys out there posted something about the return on investment on a particular card, and then they compared it to Apple stock. And I was talking with my buddy on Instagram, and I was like, this is ridiculous. Apple does $1 billion in sales a day, and it created arguably the greatest product of all time. Do you mean to tell me that you're not going to invest in Apple? Now, Apple has issues, but every company has issues. But think about those factors right there. You can't compare it to it. Like, I mean, if everything goes south in the card market, I'm pretty sure everybody's still going to be using iPhones.
Yeah, and for me, I'm like, look, with all the uncertainty, you're talking about a market crash, which, I mean, everyone that knows about finance is saying, like, look, when interest rates go up, at some point, people that are way smarter than us, that know this, that they study this all the time, that have been there for decades, and they've seen this in 2000 and 2008 and in the 80s and whatever else, they're the ones that are like, yeah, these are the red flags. Just like if you look at the card prices in a small window and you see the spike going up and up, you know that, all right, it's not going to last forever. At some point, someone is going to be paying the most amount of money for this card before everyone else says, that's a bit too rich for my blood, and then they start backing up. It's the same thing. So, yeah, I mean, like, for me, I'm kind of having I think that's why my strategy a lot is off season, and I want to be able to liquidate for the upcoming season, because if it's too long term, even if it is Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady, and I know that the player is good and it's a collectible card, I'm nervous what happens if there's a fraction of the amount of collectors and investors in 2 years. And I'd much rather have that 3 to 6 month window where I have the best chance to liquidate. So if I do see that, hey, interest rates might go up in 2023, I could think, all right, well, let me see if I want to get out in August 2022. Let me see if I want to just play it cool and then see exactly what happens. Because if I'm going too far, if I get a Michael Jordan rookie card, PSA 10, for 500 grand, which is way out of my budget. That's great. It's a great investment in this market. In a market where there's a third or a fourth of the amount of interest, all of a sudden that could still be the top card at 150,000.
Just think about everything in our world right now is overinflated, right? You've got stock market, you've got the housing market right now. We just got a refi on our house, and they valued our house at. My wife and I looked at each other like, are they serious? Like, there's no way it's worth that. Like, this insanity, you know?
If you guys have not seen The Big Short, it's just one of those movies where you want to watch The Big Short, because I was, I think, well, let's see, 20. This is 2007. So I was 21. So I was somewhat familiar with what was going on, but not nearly as familiar as I would be today. If you watch The Big Short as to what was going on in real estate back then, even if that's cleaned up now, there's still a lot of other holes in the system. The one thing I will say that excites me is that there are a lot of people in this community that are from Australia, from Costa Rica, New Zealand, China, Hong Kong, Germany, England. There are so many other countries being represented that even if the whole, we have a world economy crash, at least there are new people in all these other parts of the world that would now be interested in at least basketball and soccer. So that's given me some reassurance that with the platforms, with the technology, with the gambling aspect, with looking at it like art, with all this, and with so much of the world now wanting to be involved, I feel a bit better. But overall, personally, I'm waiting for the market to crash, and I want to buy a 20-unit apartment building that just cash flows, and then I could travel the world, do this, but also like want the cash flow. Like give me the $5K a month return, like the check every single month from my tenants, and I'm good. But like, I'll always pick that over something as volatile as stocks or as sports cards, because this is a very short window of time. And if this was the market for the last 10 years, that'd be one thing. But to see where the market has gone in just 365 days, it's still way too volatile for me.
There's just a lot of people that are overexposed, and I think a lot of people are going to get hurt. And I don't know. I don't know if the message is getting out there too late, but I think there is a good part of the people out here that are hoping that they buy that Michael Jordan card, maybe not a $400,000 card, but they buy that $50,000 card hoping it gets to 100. But what happens if it goes down to 25? Like, what do they do at that point? Are they able to withstand that? And I don't know if a lot of people in the hobby are. There just aren't that many wealthy people in America that can do that. It's the 1% of 1% can. Most of us everyday Joes can't. So you have to ask yourself, when you buy that card, if it goes down in value 50%, am I going to be okay? And if the answer is yes, buy the card.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, I think that's the one thing. It's like you only lose money when you sell. So if you can hold and hold and hold, but that's when you get into over leveraging. And that's where people get in trouble, because they can't actually afford to hold, right? It's kind of like, I can afford to make this investment if it goes up by this date, period. And I think, like, we're preaching the same message just because it's responsibility. It's just fundamentals. It's nothing fancy and it's nothing sexy. It's just, guys, if we want to be in this long term, we need to have a strategy. And I'd say the more money that these cards that are into these cards, the higher it goes, the more important it is to have a strategy versus just, I think he'll do good and I'm going to buy the card when everyone's talking about him, right? Like that's probably the worst thing you can do, because it might work out as more money is flooding the hobby for the next couple months. But if this hobby was only growing 5% or 8% a year, which is like maybe a normal hobby, that would not work at all.
The biggest mistakes I've ever made in this hobby have been with expensive cards. And I've made some home runs, but I've got 2 or 3 bird cards, magic cards, 1981 tops that I'm sitting on that I probably timed at the wrong particular time, So I like the shorter end cards just because I think again, we've already talked about that. I think they're just way more cooler. I think they fit in more people's budget, and people like having stuff that is cheap in their collection. Again, most people aren't like Blez and all these kind of guys that can spend thousands and thousands of dollars on cards. It's just not happening. And I think the misperception is that people out there, that everybody's collecting that way. And it's not true. It's not true. Everybody's got a $500 collection and under. or $1,000 collection under, right? That's just the truth of the hobby. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's okay.
Well, you know what's funny about mentioning that is, for one, I feel safer with those $300 to $1,000 cards. And the reason why is because I want to be able to sell to a bigger pool of people, right? A $300 card is no joke, really. I mean, it's not a joke. $300 for a card. I mean, that's a card payment for a lot of people. So, but I know that if stimulus checks go out and I don't know how many millions of Americans, let's say 50 million Americans now have an extra $1,400. My thought process is, okay, everything up to about maybe $2,500 might actually be bought, because maybe you're halfway saving to that $2,500 card. But a $300 card or a $500 or $1,000, I'm like, that's going to fit a lot of people's budget. The very sexy cards are those RPAs that maybe a fractional ownership company or a very high-end investor or collector would get. But to me, that is just way too risky, I mean, like, even if I could afford it, I'd be like, well, that would buy this apartment complex, these storage houses, like that would buy a lot of legitimate cash flowing businesses and assets versus something that, again, was only worth 300,000 versus 3 million 18 months ago with zero cash flow. Now, if I could rent out that card, so I could be like, hey, I will rent this out to you for $100 a day for you to take pictures on your Instagram so you could show all your friends, then now it's a cash flowing asset. But if not, now it's just, I hope this goes up. I hope this goes up. I hope this goes up without anything to, feed you along the way.
I've got a great idea, and I can't believe I'm going to share this right now, but I want to see the National Trading Card Hall of Fame, where cards are on display and people send their cards there and they can get a percentages of the revenue of the baseball or the card Hall of Fame there. So if you've got a Michael Jordan card, and of course we would sell tickets to it and all that kind of stuff, just like the National Baseball Hall of Fame would be. But yeah, they can get a percentage of revenue off of that ticket sale. So basically like a part ownership company of the actual Hall of Fame there. So I think that would be cool, man.
Like a classic car show or something where it's like, hey, we're selling tickets to this car show or to this museum, but we need the artifacts. We need something to bring people in. And for every ticket sold, you'll get 30 cents because we're bringing in these other cards. Hey, but I thought of that because I'm like, how do you make cards actually cash flow versus just cross your fingers that it's going to go up in value in the future? And so, but as you can tell, I'm more of like a Robert Kiyosaki cash flow quadrant type of person where I'm like, look, give me the monthly paycheck, let me roll it into whatever. I'm just more conservative. So with that, it's been about an hour, 5 minutes, minus the time that your internet crapped out because of Dustin. So, I mean, it happened. Any final messages or anything else that you'd really like to get across? Because I know you have a very methodical approach, and I think that's well needed in the hobby.
Just do you, man. People know in their heart what they like and what they can afford. And as long as they follow that process and don't get in trouble with the wife about, buying cards you're not supposed to, or sending them to your office so that they can't find out about it, being true to yourself, buying stuff that you can afford, but buy stuff that you like, so because if it goes down in value, so what? You've got a card that you absolutely love to have. And if you like it and nobody else doesn't like it, so what? Who cares what they're doing? Just do you.
Yeah, I think there's a message that really resonated with me that you had up in a couple of videos ago where you're like, look, you can get to that stage if you do the right things over time, just like anything else. You can lose weight, you can get your college degree, you can do whatever. And maybe you look at these big cards and these big transactions as an end goal. Like, that's really cool. If someone else can do it, so can I. But understand where you are on the path and what it takes to get there, because that does not happen overnight. So, I mean, I look at some of these videos and I'm like, man, like that is expanding my vision. That is making me understand, like, what limiting beliefs do I have of myself? Am I playing too small? And after a while of watching Sports Card Investor and PSA Collector and all these videos and content on $1,000 cards and 2,500, I'm like, all right, now I'm ready to try out the next level, right? Now to go from a $10 card to a $25, a 25 to a 50 to 100, and still be okay. Like, all right, I'm still getting deeper and deeper in the pool, but I'm not going to dive into the deep end until I learn all these lessons that I need to learn on a smaller end. So I think it's just a great message. We need to be understanding what's in it for us, like what we really want, and just be okay with where we are, and then getting a bit further in our knowledge and our experience one day at a time. Awesome, man. So Matt, where can people follow you? Where would you like for them to go? I know you have a great YouTube station, Instagram, as well as your collectible, your memorabilia store. Yeah,
so the website's powersportsmemorabilia.com. You'll see all the autograph signings coming up. We got Brett Favre, Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, like big time names coming up. There's a bunch of Fanatics guys too. Instagram's Powers Autographs, and then of course you can find me on YouTube, which is Power Sports Memorabilia.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for joining us in the comment section. Make sure to check out Matt's station and his Instagram as well as his website. I can't wait to get a piece of memorabilia for myself. I did see you had like a Rob Gronkowski autograph session or something coming up, or that just passed. So I'm very excited about a Gronk Buccaneer autograph. So that might be something I splurge on.
I tell you what, Brad, it's on me, bro. Just send it to me. I'll get it signed for you.
Dude, that would be sick. That would be beyond sick. I mean,
there you go. Just send it to me, man. I got to have it soon, though. So,
okay, we'll talk right after this, but I'd love to have it. I'd love to put it right up behind me, and then hopefully that'll be a good advertisement for your company as well.
There you go.
But yeah, man, very excited about that. You made my night. Well, I mean, besides the baklava on the cake, if you guys didn't see this, looks like breadsticks, but it's grocery store baklava on one side, cake on the other. It's the mullet of desserts. All right, guys, have a great night. Matt, thanks so much for joining me, and I will see you guys in the next video.